I think now that he is under scrutiny from smarter people, much smarter than myself, he will start to come undone in a bigger and bigger fashion. It wouldn't surprise me if in 5 years he's persona non grata.
We shall see, Leon. We shall see. And at the moment, I mean, that's probably the best theory so far, is that we're all getting het up on the $8 a month thing, but that's going to be a tiny part of the overall plan. But the sense that there is no overall plan is kind of hard to resist for me, but I don't know perhaps enough about Elon Musk's backstory like Leon does. Mark's in Manchester. Mark, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. How are you doing? First-time caller.
Welcome, mate. What's on your mind?
I work in advertising, and I'd just like to give you my opinion on how I suspect this plays out. First things first, I was hearing you discussing with your penultimate caller.
Yeah.
Don't worry about who James O'Brien is. Your brand is Mr. James O'B.
Yeah.
That's the value, not who James O'Brien is. It's that URL.
So I should pay my $8 on. Well, no, I don't need to, because that doesn't have a blue tick.
No, you don't need to. If you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. Ultimately, I suspect this will play out in a way for Twitter to be involved in the purchase of paid advertising. If you watch Kim Kardashian's latest trailer for her new series, she talks about being paid $1 million for one tweet.
Wow.
That she's put out on Twitter. So ultimately,
I need to renegotiate my royalties.
You do indeed. Ultimately, this is how I suspect it plays out. The £8 a month is irrelevant. It's a way of getting people to have verified ticks, and that's that. As soon as you have that, that opens you up to a world in which people can bid and auction to have you, Mr. James O'B, tweet about their brand, and you will have a value against it. So if I'm a fashion brand, let's say, I will...
Don't be silly. Talk about Kim Kardashian again. It's not a fashion brand on the planet that's going to pay me. They might pay me not to wear that. Hey, that could be a good one. I could start an auction. If you don't pay me $10,000, I'd do Celebrity Mastermind wearing one of your T-shirts.
So there'll be a very, very simple UI system, much like PayPal, which Elon was involved in, which if I'm a fashion brand, I can say, OK, I've got 150 grand and I want someone to tweet about my new Christmas wear. Who can I get to tweet about my brand for that, and what's their value in terms of their amount of followers? Well, you could have X at 20,000, or you could have Y at 100,000, and these will all be verified accounts that I can select from. I'll then say, yes, I'd like to go with this person, and it'll all go through Twitter as a Twitter revenue that I pay X person 150 grand. It's approved by their team, it's tweeted out from that account, and that £8 is the way that can be determined on who can and who cannot do paid placement on Twitter.
Right. That you sound very clever. Unfortunately, you veered into territory that I'm not really qualified to follow you into. So but I think I understand pretty much everything that you've said. In a nutshell, he wants a bit of the action that Kim Kardashian describes.
It's 1.5%. If you want Kim Kardashian to tweet, then
he's got a point then.
Through Twitter, very, very simple. It all gets approved through Twitter. Twitter take the revenue. They pay Kim minus their fee. And you want
to use my platform to flog I don't know, false nails.
Mr. James O'B with a million followers.
Yeah,
it's worth a lot of money.
Is it?
Now it might not be worth a lot of money to you because you're not doing anything with it. But that's your decision. It's to a lot of people, 1 million people.
Yeah,
with a decent conversion. You know, you're looking at a lot of money there.
What sort of stuff should I be selling?
Well, it depends. How low do you want to go? You know, you can get involved in anything.
Oh no, I don't want to be doing anything like that. You see, Boris Johnson's speaking at a Bitcoin conference next month.
Is he? Yeah. Is he? That doesn't surprise me.
No, me neither. I wouldn't want to go that low. Don't at me. I mean, I do like chocolate products, for example.
Is Boris also going to be taking his fee from the Prime Minister's office as well as
at the same time? I don't know. Don't get distracted. We're trying to come up with money-making wheezes for me. The chocolate products probably not, because I'm a bit pasty.
We'll make a lot of money by this time next year.
Let me know. Send me a business plan, Mark. We'll talk. My people will talk to your people. And this time next year, we'll be millionaires. 11:43 is the time. Verity's in Taunton. Verity, what would you like to say?
I don't think it's anything you think it is at all.
Okay.
I think it's to do with him shaping the paradigm of the discussions that we have as a populace and shifting it away from this stalemate that we're currently stuck in. There's so much division about this. If you spend enough time on Twitter, you can see the discussions. It's a chess game and we're stalemate. Nobody's winning. We all have really strong opinions and we don't seem to be able to move forward. And Brexit is obviously one of those things that has caused that.
So what's he going to do then?
He wants to make a protocol. This has got nothing to do with making money. He's got so much money, he doesn't need to make any more money.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is an internet protocol. This is about language. This is about, at the moment,
it's blockchain, not Bitcoin, that Boris Johnson's doing. Sorry, I don't even know the difference, but it seems important to stress that distinction. It's blockchain.
You think about email. You think about you use email, and you don't think anything about how it gets from one end to the other. You don't think about the protocols that are used to disseminate that information. You just use it. And we've got to the point with Twitter. Now, the whole thing with Jack Dorsey, who is one of the original founders of Twitter, he's actually got his own project called Blue Sky that he's developing. And the whole point of Blue Sky is not to create another Twitter. It's in beta. It's launching soon. You can sign up if you want to. I'm signed up.
Okay.
And the whole point is to create a new protocol of internet language so that it becomes a platform, almost not open source, but pretty much open source.
As in unmoderated then, or?
Well, I mean, it's only unmoderated.
So listen. You know more.
You can write a web page, can't you?
No, of course I can't.
And you use HTML or you use PHP.
What? Hello? No, I don't understand any of this. So no, just pause, back up, right?
Okay, so language.
No, it's not pausing. You're literally not pausing. I said pause. You said okay, and then you started talking again. This is ridiculous.
I'm in the spectrum, and I'm sorry I struggle.
Oh, please don't apologise ever for that. I'm sorry that I'd presumed that when you said you're going to pause, you're going to pause. It was me being glib and glancing at the clock, actually, Verity, and realising that I'm already late. No, stop apologising. You've got absolutely nothing to apologise. You're literally apologising for my failure to understand your brilliant explanation of these complicated issues. But just paint a picture briefly for me, if you can.
Yes.
Of what he is trying to turn Twitter into, and don't use words like protocol.
Sorry.
No, stop apologising.
I can't help it. It's a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're sorry.
Okay.
Carry on.
It's language.
Yeah.
And it's changing the way if you think about the years and years we've developed language, and the way that we communicate has shifted so many times. We've got so many languages that we already use in the internet realm.
Right.
This is going to become another language. And he wants to use that language to shape the future. Everything about Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, is about him looking forward. He's looking towards the future. You're in the present. You're thinking about what is he doing now. That's not how he operates. He's always thinking forward. Everything he buys up. I mean, the fact that you were talking about Tesla earlier, he bought that up at a time when no one was thinking about electric cars, but he was thinking about electric cars.
Got there. So what will the new language look like? Why are you worried about it?
Because everything with language is open to abuse. Look at the way the media uses language.
But Twitter is already very open to abuse. What I haven't got a handle on is what's going to change.
Everything.
Yeah, well, that doesn't help, does it?
Okay, so think about internet language and think about your use of the internet.
Yeah.
How vastly has that changed from its inception?
Only in quantity, not in quality.
Well, no, think about the way you buy, the way you live, the way you interact.
Yeah, I can do all of that, but what is Twitter going to look like that it doesn't look like now? You're speaking in very big abstracts. I'm not keeping up.
On the phone earlier that I am dealing with abstracts.
I'm not keeping up.
That's the problem. It's hard.
Okay.
It is hard to speak. If you're not Elon and you're not him and you're not thinking the way he's thinking, it's very hard to envisage what
he's actually got in mind.
Yeah.
It's like 3D chess.
Yeah, we can only postulate what he wants to do. He can only grasp. You know, he's a bit like a Steve Jobs, I suppose, in that sense.
But you can say to me, oh, we're going to have electric cars, or oh, we're going to go to Mars, or oh, we're going to build this thing that is a phone and a camera and also plays music.
Quantifiable.
So what? Quantify Twitter then. Quantify Twitter 2.0 for me.
How do you quantify something so abstract?
That's what I'm asking you.
I just think he has a vision that none of us are grasping. I think. Well,
that's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, even from a marketing point of vue, that's just the holy grail. That's like it's like I've got a brilliant idea, but it goes to a different school, and I will believe you. I've got a brilliant idea, but it goes to a different school, and everyone believes you. But you're probably right because he's had. But yeah, quantifiable is the word I'm taking away from that conversation. That and a slightly sort of dazed sense. It is 11:52. There's a journalist called Dave Troy. I'm just going to retweet an article that he's written that has just blown my head off, actually. Not literally, obviously. But crikey. And I think it is a neat distillation of some of the stuff that Verity was trying to explain to us just one moment ago. Lewis Goodall making his debut on PMQs in a few moments. I'm going to take one more call on Twitter and then we'll get stuck into what is on the horizon. Grant is in Woking. Grant, I've got to be honest with you. I chose this subject as a bit of light relief, and now my head hurts.
Would you like me to attempt to try and give you some light relief?
Go on then, or just make it all make sense for me, please.
So kind of my take on this is, to me, it has the kind of same energy as I'm sure you're aware of SLAP suits.
What suits?
Strategic lawsuits against public participation.
Oh, SLAT double T. Yes, slap.
Yes.
Slap. I thought you said slat, as in. No, yeah, slaps. Yes.
Yes, slap. So it has the same sort of energy for me as that, except it's.
Crikey.
Well, when you think about it, like Twitter, I think Musk a few months ago described Twitter as the the town hall of the world or something like that. Some kind of grandiose term like that.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to open up the realms of it to be even more inclusive and allow more public participation, instead he is monetizing it, which is, to me, it has that kind of quite negative energy. Instead of trying to turn this thing into a digital public goods,
he would argue that he is, though. I don't know. If you read this article by Dave Troy, then
I'll take a look.
Seriously, I've just retweeted it from my account. There's a really powerful argument there that it goes way beyond monetizing. It's not necessarily going to cheer you up, but he's got much bigger plans than that, much bigger plans than mere monetization. I thought
not competitors.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to have a slightly light-hearted, self-deprecating chat about whether or not I should pay $8 to keep my blue tick, but I think in retrospect that was a bit childish of me.
Well, you were looking at new forms of monetization. I've got a good idea for you.
Go on then, seriously.
write
Family
more
program.
books.
Pardon?
Write more books.
Oh God! Have you any idea how hard it is? Have you any idea how hard it is to write a book, Grant? They don't write themselves, mate. Even when I lift transcripts from the radio show to make up about a quarter of the first one, it was still hard work.
Yes, no, I can. Well, it was hard enough work doing a dissertation and then a master's.
I
can appreciate it.
Actually, funnily enough, there may be some news in that department before the end of the year. Depending on how discreet I can manage to be, it might be before the end of the show. But thank you, mate. That cheered me up no end. Lewis Goodall is here. Before we get stuck into the politics, can I apologise on the public record for nearly killing you the other day?
Oh, my goodness gracious. I'm starting therapy for that.
I was so embarrassed. It was one of those moments that unfolded in slow motion. And
Never respond. If James O'Brien ever calls your name in the middle of the street, just walk straight ahead, because otherwise you just get almost killed by a bike.
I called his name. He was crossing the road on the phone, so you're already distracted. I call his name. He looks over. He sees me. He very kindly thinks, "Oh, that's someone worth stopping to say hello to." So
I hadn't made that decision yet.
Had you not made that decision?
Yeah,
all right, okay. Well, so you're in the business of saying goodbye to her, and then I see a bicycle coming towards you as you're coming towards me, and you haven't seen the bicycle, and I go, "Look out for the bicycle!" And then bang.
James O'Brien, lethal.
It was terrible. Oh, mate, I'm wincing at the memory. It was just my daughter was with me.
The cyclist was so annoyed.
I know.
But he couldn't really be that annoyed because I looked genuinely a bit winded.
You were a bit winded. I wanted the cyclist to be annoyed with me. I think I actually said, "I'm so sorry, that was my fault.
I wanted him to be annoyed with you as well.
Don't blame this innocent person. It was entirely my fault."
No, it was.
Oh, it was awful. I'm reliving
the gaiety
it now.
of my day.
I'm traumatised.
In retrospect.
Politicians who haven't gone to the jungle will be squaring up over the dispatch box shortly. What can we expect?
Look, second round for Sunak and for Starmer. Look, I think we're going to end up hearing a lot of gags about kangaroos, various innards and outards, and jungle stuff. We'll probably hear a little bit about COP as well. And
this is the U-turn. It is a U-turn, isn't it?
He
was adamant he wasn't
U-turn.
going.
Absolutely. He said, the PM said last week, he said that, there was no need to go because he was sending Therese Coffey, his Environment Secretary, and he was focused on the autumn statement and the preparations for that. Then that sort of mutated a little bit earlier in the week to saying, well, if the preparation have been made around the autumn statement, then I might be able to go. And now he's tweeted this morning, no reference to any of that, saying that, energy security is our environmental security, and he'll be going after all.
Why do we think he's done this?
I think that I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of embarrassment about two things. First of all, around the King's position and the fact that he was hosting a COP27 summit at Buckingham Palace. It'd be interesting to know if there has been any exchanges between the different private secretaries between Downing Street and Buckingham Palace. But also, I think, the fact that Boris Johnson was going and Rishi Sunak. I mean, the thing, James, that surprised me about it in a way is whatever you think about the environmental stuff and the agenda of COP, the thing that surprised me about him not going was actually it was his first opportunity to kind of strut his stuff on the world stage.
Yes.
And that, PMs of all
and to
stripes.
Press the flesh
and
as well.
Press a lot of world leaders don't really know him. Finance ministers will know him, but many of the world leaders won't know him. They'll know Boris Johnson. And so the opportunity, I think, to just press the flesh and get to know some of these people and have those kind of bilats surprised me that he didn't want to take that up, and now he's going to.
I am going to disagree with you about something.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's Starmer's style to be bringing up kangaroo penises.
Oh, well, we'll see. I would be surprised if there is not some reference. It might. Perhaps the word penis you don't want to get on Hansard
so
too
not
much,
that then. But why would Sunak be embarrassed by Matt Hancock's involvement in the jungle? It didn't even shake his hand infamously.
The thing is about Hancock, right? And this is the reason why he's going, right? Is that he is one of the few politicians that the public actually recognise. We always kind of, obviously, you and I breathe this stuff day after day after day. I mean, actually, beyond the Chancellor, beyond the PM, normally the Health Secretary, most people wouldn't know him unless there's been a tremendous controversy. Obviously, everyone knows about Hancock because of COVID and the endless daily kind of briefings at the time. So he is infamous in one way or another. And I think it's just a kind of way of Starmer. I mean, look, the critique of Starmer always is he can be a bit leaden and a bit grey. Actually, he likes to try and make a few gags now and again. I suspect, I'll bet you a 5. I'll bet you a broken bicycle chain. That he
damaged phone.
Yeah, no, it survived to my astonishment.
I know it did. It's got quite a good. Okay, and on the grown-up side of things, COP gets a bit of a mention. Is he going to go in on Suella Braverman, do you think, or
possibly, or cut? Or I mean, look, I think the thing at the moment, James, is that we're in this kind of slightly weird, phony period of politics.
We are, and I need to warn you, we will cross quite abruptly to that.
And I think, this is part of that. Before the autumn statement gets going, and we start to see actually what the shape of politics looks like, the cuts to come, which are going to be extraordinary, and politics starts to feel quite 2010 again. This sort of period is a little bit weird and a bit fake, and a little bit everyone just sort of sizing each other up. We saw that in PMQs last week. I suspect we'll see that again today as well.
A little bit of a bounce for Hancock for Sunak in the polls, but not enough to calm the horses.
Well, I suppose in one sense, I think a lot of Conservative MPs would feel that he couldn't have been doing much worse, right? So, it's not
statistically supported.
And the facts. And he's overtaking, and I think he's getting going now, actually. He just stood up in the House of Commons, so we'll be able to hear him very shortly. But it is, look, he couldn't be doing much worse. And the fact is that he is someone who, he's known to the public, and the thing that will encourage Conservative MPs most is the fact that he started to overtake them Starmer on preferred PM, and that has happened quite quickly. And that's the thing I think that will worry Labour most and please Conservative MPs the best.
So any chicken counting over the recent polls could turn out to have been a little bit premature.
Well, but on the other hand, Labour are so far ahead.
25.
But frankly, if you get up there if you increase the vote by 5 points, well, you're still 25 points ahead. It's just a different category of landslide if that were to be sustained to the next general election, which is obviously a big if.
Indeed. As soon as Keir Starmer gets to his feet, which will be any minute now, we will cross live to PMQs, joined by Lewis Goodall, star of the Newsagents podcast and, of course, his own show on LBC. But a few people wondering where Theo Usherwood is. He is having a well-deserved break.
Quite right.
So do not worry about that. He will be back. So, and it is only his second PMQs. How many did Liz Truss do? 3. So two more.
Yeah, he's now done 2/3 of the total Truss complement of PMQs. So he's already doing all right. Give him another, I think, 40 days, and he'll overtake her altogether.
And that'll be it. And how many days of recess are? I mean, because part of Matt.
So the House, I think, rises next or Friday, and then is back on Wednesday. So I think he basically misses kind of a couple. The House is in recess for a few days, but of course MPs can't have it both ways, right? Because whenever you turn around to them and say, why do you have so many holidays? They say, well, we're not having holidays. We're on doing constituency business. So, the problem in a way, I think why so many MPs are angry about this is it kind of punctures that idea for the rest of MPs because the public already think that basically when they're not in Parliament, they're on holiday.
Have you been surprised by the scale of coverage? I mean, led to 6 o'clock on, yeah.
No, I think partly because of his infamy, as I say, as a politician. I think so much of it is about him. He's just so well known, and he engenders such anger. That said, I think it kind of speaks to that idea of us being in a bit of a phony war again. We've had this deeply intense period of politics over the collapse of the mini budget and Truss government. This all feels like slightly normal, slightly more
a breathing space.
A little bit of breathing space. The political class is so exhausted, the media class is so exhausted, everyone's been so exhausted by it. This is almost a kind of, as you say, a bit of an interim before politics.
OK, here we go. PMQs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. His Home Secretary says the asylum system is broken. Who broke it?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's just we can look at the record on migration policy. Let's look at it. What did we on this side of the House do? We gave the British people a referendum on Brexit. We delivered Brexit. We ended the free movement of people, Mr. Speaker. That's our record on migration policy. It's not something the honourable gentleman supported. He opposed it at every turn, and it's not what the British people want.
No one wants open borders on this side of the House. They've lost control of the borders on their side of the House. Mr. Speaker, four Prime Ministers in 5 years, and it's the same old. He stands there and tries to pass the blame. If the asylum system is broken, and his lot have been in power for 12 years, how can it be anyone's fault but theirs?
Mr. Speaker, people rightly want to see us getting a grip of migration in our borders. But let's look at the record. The right honourable gentleman, he voted against the Nationality and Borders Bill. He said he would scrap the Rwanda partnership. He opposed the ending of free movement of people. Look, border control is a serious, complex issue. But not only does the party opposite not have a plan, they have opposed every single measure we have taken to solve the problem. You can't attack a plan if you don't have a plan.
We voted against it because we said it wouldn't work, and it hasn't worked. He says he's getting a grip, he's got a plan. So let's have a look at that plan. The Rwanda deal was launched in April. It cost the taxpayer £140 million and rising. The number of people deported to Rwanda is 0. Since then, 30,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats. It's not working, is it? He hasn't got a grip.
Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House are clear that we want to defend our borders. When the Shadow Home Secretary this weekend was asked, she couldn't answer a simple question if the party opposite was in favour of higher or lower migration. It's that simple. The Home Secretary and I, when it comes to tackling on migration, reducing migration, we are on the same page. That party's policy, it's a blank page, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, blame others, deflect, attack on something else. So much for the new age of accountability. Of all the people who arrived in small boats last year, how many asylum claims have been processed?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we do need. Mr. Speaker, not enough is the answer, very straightforwardly. Not enough. And that's what we're going to fix. But the honourable gentleman raises this question. What are we doing? We've increased the number of processing officials by 80%. We are putting an extra 500 more by next March. But if he really was serious about fixing this problem, then he would acknowledge that we do need to tackle the issue of people putting spurious claims, spurious, repeated, last-minute claims to frustrate the process. That's how we'll tackle the system. So why then did he vote against the Nationality and Borders Act, which deals with it?
Mr. Speaker, he says not enough. You could say that again. It's 4%. 4% of people arriving in small boats last year had their asylum claim processed. According to the bookies, the Home Secretary has a better chance of becoming the next Tory leader than she has of processing an asylum claim in a year. and he talks about numbers. They're only taking half the number of asylum decisions that they used to. That's why the system is broken. 4,000 people at the Manston Air Force Base, massively overcrowded, all sorts of diseases breaking out. So, did the Home Secretary receive legal advice that she should move people out? Yes or no?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman is very fond of reminding us that he used to be the former Director of Public Prosecutions, so he knows the government's policy on commenting on legal advice. But what I can say is the significant action that the Home Secretary has taken to fix the issue. Since September, 30 more hotels with 4,500 new beds, appointing a senior general to control the situation at Manston, and indeed increasing the number of staff there by almost a half, Mr. Speaker. These are significant steps to demonstrate that we are getting a grip of this system. But this is a serious and escalating problem. We will make sure that we control our borders, and we will always do it fairly and compassionately, because that's the right thing.
Here's Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about my time as Director of Public Prosecutions. I prosecuted people smugglers. He can't even get an asylum claim process. I think the answer to the question whether the Home Secretary received legal advice to move people out of Manston is yes. He just hasn't got the guts to say it. He did a grubby deal with her, putting her in charge of Britain's security just so he could dodge an election. She's broken the ministerial code, lost control of a refugee centre, and put our security at risk. She did get one thing right. She finally admitted that the Tories have broken the asylum system. Criminal gangs running amok, thousands crossing the channel in small boats every week, hardly any claims processed. So why doesn't he get a proper Home Secretary, scrap the Rwanda gimmick, crack down on smuggling gangs, end the small boat crossings, speed up asylum claims, and agree an international deal on refugees? Start governing for once and get a grip.
Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman.
Front rows. Can we just calm it down a little? I do want to hear the replies. You're covering your mouth. It's not helpful to me or you. Come on, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman rightly raised the topic of national security, because it is important. But this is the person who in 2019 told the BBC, and I quote, "I do think Jeremy Corbyn would make a great Prime Minister." Mr. Speaker, let's remember that national security agenda, abolishing our armed forces, scrapping the nuclear deterrent, withdrawing from NATO, voting against every single anti-terror law we tried, befriending Hamas and Hezbollah. He may want to forget about it, but we will remind him of it every week, because it's the Conservative government that will keep this country safe.
To my register of interest. Mr. Speaker, right now we are suffering the worst outbreak of avian flu ever recorded. Hundreds of thousands of birds are being destroyed to stem the spread of this terrible disease. The government's acted quickly to bring forward compensation for live birds culled to 48 hours after confirmation of disease. But even this short delay is causing significant losses to farmers in Broadland as the disease wreaks havoc to flocks. Dead birds are not compensated. Today is Back British Farming Day. Will my right honourable friend take this opportunity to back British farmers and agree compensation for all affected birds from the date when disease is confirmed?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as someone who represents a very rural and farming community, it is a great pleasure to back British Farming Day and join with colleagues on all sides of the House in doing so. But my honourable friend is right to highlight that outbreaks of avian flu this year are on track to be some of the worst on record. That's why we've toughened up biosecurity measures on poultry farms, and I can say to him that we have confirmed we will now pay compensation from the outset of planned culling rather than at the end, a request that I know he and the farming sector will warmly welcome.
Leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In May of this year, the new Prime Minister told this chamber, and I quote, "I can reassure the House that next year's benefits will be uprated by this September's CPI, and the triple lock will apply for the state pension. But last week, the Prime Minister repeatedly refused to say if he would keep to a promise that he made only 5 months ago. Prime Minister, people don't need to hear any more spin about compassionate conservatism. People just need a straight answer to a simple question. Will he keep his promise and lift benefits and pensions in line with inflation?
Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, we do now have an excellent new Chancellor, and I'm looking forward to his autumn statement in a couple of weeks. It wouldn't be right to comment on individual policy measures before then, but I think everyone knows we do face a challenging economic outlook and difficult decisions will need to be made. But what I would say is that we will always, as my track record as Chancellor demonstrates, have fairness and compassion at the heart of everything we do.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it was a very simple question asking for the Prime Minister to reiterate what he promised just 5 months ago. For the second week running, he still won't give a straight answer to the most vulnerable that require support. The Prime Minister keeps telling us that difficult decisions need to be made, but austerity 2.0 isn't a difficult decision. It is what it has always been, a Tory political choice to hit the poorest hardest. In the week that BP saw quarterly profits of £7.1 billion, why not take the easy decision to bring in a proper windfall tax? Why not take the easy decision to reinstate the cap on bankers' bonuses? Why not take the easy decision to scrap the non-dom tax avoidance? And with all that new revenue, why not stand up today and take the easiest decision of all, to protect those most in need and increase benefits and pensions in line with inflation?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman raised the issue of North Sea, and this is a point of significant difference between his party and ours. As Chancellor, I introduced the new levy on oil and gas companies because I believe that was the right thing to do. But where we will always differ is we believe that our North Sea producers do have an important role to play in our transition to net zero. They are an important source of transition fuels, and we will make sure that we support them to invest in exploiting those resources for the British people.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I firstly welcome the IPU delegation from Madagascar who are in today's viewing gallery.
And I think we can all join in those warm words of welcome to the delegation from Madagascar. No doubt we'll be relying on a trade deal with them soon to plug some of the holes caused by Brexit. I'll take a quick break and then Lewis Goodall and I will pick over the bones of the PMQs that you have just heard. To sum it up very briefly in advance, Rishi Sunak is still talking about Jeremy Corbyn because pretty much any other subject raised by Keir Starmer left the Prime Minister with rather large amounts of egg on the old fizzog. 90 minutes after 12. Did you offer me a bet on whether or not ostrich anuses would come up?
I think I did.
There you go.
Honestly.
Watch and learn, young Goodall.
I know. I like to think that at some point some enterprising, plucky MP from the Labour benches or whatever is going to mention it now. But you know what, James? I think actually it reflects a sort of a wider thought about what we've just heard as well, which is in a way Starmer didn't need to do that. Because, to my surprise, he was so confident about immigration and asylum. And this is quite a new thing. I mean, typically, Labour leaders and Starmer himself have not been very confident about engaging on this issue, an issue about which they usually trail the Tories in the polls. But it was so notable in that exchange just how confident Starmer was in going after Sunak on the government's record on immigration and asylum and what's happening at the border. And I think that, and just how rattled Sunak appeared by it. It wasn't just about Braverman and the particular kind of problems that she's had. I think what it also speaks to, and this is, I think, what Labour are trying to achieve now. Look, what is Sunak trying to do? Sunak is trying to pull off, once again, the idea of conservative renewal in office, right? I'm a blank piece of paper. And in a weird sort of way, he's trying to do that not after kind of a disaster from a Labour government like, Cameron said that Gordon Brown's government was or whatever. He's trying to do it after a sort of disaster from a Conservative Prime Minister, right? And actually, potentially, because he was so opposed to what Truss was trying to do, he potentially, that is quite a strong card for him because he's so associated in the public's mind with not wanting to do what Truss did. But what Labour are trying to do on each and every issue, including this one now, is just each time trying to weave everything back to him and the fact that he was Chancellor and the Conservatives have been in office for such a long time. And that was partly what Starmer was trying to do there.
And, I mean, the questions were effective, albeit unanswered, but that goes with the territory. I mean, if your Home Secretary has said that a system is broken, the second Home Secretary in 2 years to say that the asylum system is broken, Priti Patel said it in October 2020, and the question of who broke it is actually quite pertinent.
Well, indeed. I mean, and Sunak's first answer was especially poor, because what he tried to do was, answer it by talking about Brexit. Now, the asylum system and immigration, freedom of movement and Brexit are completely separate. In fact, arguably, you can say that Brexit has made the asylum process more difficult because we're no longer part of the Dublin Convention, which means that if it's an EU member state, theoretically at least, it wasn't used that much because of legal problems, but theoretically, if someone has come to another EU country first, a safe country, you can send them back and tell them to go and apply for asylum there. But I mean, that was a particularly weak line. And the other
Brexit promise was, even though it was a bit Faragist in its inception, the Brexit promise was that leaving the European Union would somehow solve immigration-related problems.
Well, indeed. And actually, the truth is that, our problems around our labour market simply requires lots of labour that the British domestic market isn't able to, in many, many cases, provide.
So when he said to Starmer, and we'll jump ahead a little bit, the bit about your Shadow Home Secretary couldn't say whether they were in favour of more or less migration. Isn't that true of his own party as well? Isn't that on their arguments?
Precisely right. And I think that is one of the problems, and that was something that we saw play out with the Truss government and Braverman, and it's something we're seeing play out again now. Although we get so obsessed about the personalities and who's PM or whatever, the structural problem the Conservatives have about a whole host of issues remains, which is that fundamentally a lot of them don't agree. Their coalition is now so big and so vast that they don't agree on many of the central questions. And immigration is a central part of it. There's a big wing of the Conservative Party which says, look, if what we really need to achieve is growth, so we can get out of this public finance mess that we're in and so on, this is basically the Truss argument, let's have more immigration. We need it. We've got an ageing population, we've got declining fertility rates, etc., etc., etc. But then obviously a big, as you say, James, part of the politics of Brexit was to say, no, we've got to clamp down on immigration. We can't have it. And these two things can't be reconciled. No. They are just diametrically opposite. And fundamentally, the Conservative Party does not agree and hasn't done the thinking to reconcile those two positions. Boris Johnson, of course, with so many of these things, gelled it together because he was such a mercurial personality, for want of a better expression. Sunak doesn't have that, just like Truss didn't. And I think these sharp-edged problems are going to hone more and more into view as his premiership continues.
Because by mercurial, you mean he could
he could look both ways.
Yes, precisely. Simultaneously tell one person. That's it. That's the perfect.
He would like that. I'm sure if he's listening to that, he'd appreciate it.
Sure he's got his feet up somewhere. And then the question of legal advice, which again left Sunak floundering.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think every question he struggled with, frankly. And
unless you believe that pointing out that Keir Starmer was opposed to Brexit and served under Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, look, I think just narrowly on the question of the legal advice, this is an issue which is not going to go away. Sunak did not answer whether or not whether Braverman had received legal advice on the question.
And of course, his answer was
B&B's. Oh, we don't comment about this stuff.
But if there wasn't any legal advice, he'd be able to comment on it because we don't comment on legal advice. We can comment on the absence of legal advice. There was no legal advice, so he can't say that, which means there is some.
Well, exactly, and that is potentially a smoking.
And he'd know, right? Starmer, with his DPP background, would know.
Absolutely. On the Corbyn stuff, look, I think that was a line, saying to Starmer, oh, you work for Jeremy Corbyn, you advocate Jeremy Corbyn. It worked all right last week. There is a real law of diminishing returns with it, particularly in a parliamentary context. You can't every week sort of press the panic button and break the emergency glass and sort of break out the Corbyn line. No matter what happens, it doesn't work. It might be a little bit more effective with some constituent elements of the public. But look, it is a long way to 2024 or the early part of 2025 in the next election. And if that is the thing you've got in the bank, I think it's a big problem.
Even in the Parliamentary Labour Party.
Well, indeed. Well, quite so. But I think the other thing that really struck me about this, James, watching that, is that it reminded me of how few times Sunak has done something like this, only his second time, like we were saying before, and that Keir Starmer, how experienced he now is. This is one of the problems in a way when you become Prime Minister within governments from another job in the middle of the Parliament. Being leader of the opposition famously is the worst job in British politics, but it is a great apprenticeship for how to deal with PMQs. As William Hague once famously said, it's not like you've got much else to do in the week. You can literally just spend your time thinking about how to catch the PM out. The PM obviously has loads of things to do, and PMQs, though important, is not the only thing in his in tray. And so, yes, OK, he'd done Treasury questions as Chancellor, but it's a completely different kettle of fish to this. This is a bear pit by comparison to that. Every single question, when you've got to just go across all of government and every single department, be across everything rather than just your own, is difficult. And Keir Starmer, has got better at this stuff. And I think that imbalance between the two showed today.
Answer this question, would you, for Philip, who's tweeted, how is it that Corbyn is a dirtier word than Johnson, when Corbyn potentially could have messed up the country, but Johnson actually did mess up the country, and then backed Truss, who messed things up even more? How is a potential disaster worse than an actual disaster?
Well, I suppose it's partly about their relationship with the press, and I think it's partly about their relationship with their own parties. I mean, look, as you say, James, Jeremy Corbyn is not even a Labour MP anymore. His own party, whatever you think about this, has disowned him, and there were questions around his response to the anti-Semitism report and so on. Johnson is, although a deeply controversial figure within the Conservative Party, for many Conservative MPs, we heard reports yesterday about Boris Johnson having drinks with about 60 or so Conservative MPs, his biggest supporters in the House of Commons yesterday. Yeah. He's not going anywhere from politics. He remains a folk hero for many Conservative MPs, even though he's loathed by others.
That's really the answer.
Basically, yeah. Whereas, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn does still have support within the Labour Party and the members, but his support within the PLP is much more limited.
And how significant is Johnson's decision to go to COP27, do you think, in the context? I know we touched on this before PMQ started, and Starmer didn't bring it up. I wondered whether he might actually, but do you think if Johnson wasn't going, would Sunak be going?
I think Rishi Sunak is acutely conscious of Boris Johnson and his role within the Conservative Party now. Look, I mean, Sunak is a bit unfortunate in the sense that he has now got 3 former PMs to deal with. Right, on the back benches. This hasn't happened since last time. I mean, I would. Although no, you see, I don't think so. I think you know her speech on the steps of Downing Street where she just did not acknowledge what had happened. No. I think a lot of that was about, and she just basically reiterated the free market principles and so on. I think a lot of that was basically her establishing herself, or the first step of establishing herself as a kind of heroine of the free market, of a kind of intellectual hero to this sort of side of politics, which I think she is going to she'll lie low for a while, but I think that she will then sort of re-establish herself as a sort of paragon for these things and for sort of the free market and politics of the free market for what she was trying to do. So I think that, her political stock is very, very low, so she won't cause him too much trouble. But yeah, look, I mean, Rishi Sunak we haven't had 3 former PMs in the Commons since the 80s. And so it just sort of changes slightly the dynamics of your parliamentary management, what you've got to do. And obviously Boris Johnson is the biggest issue of all of them. And I think what he would like dearly to do, if he could find some foreign job. Some maybe our ambassador to NATO, something in Ukraine, get him out of the Commons. That will solve the Privileges Committee's problem. It will solve the possibility of his coming back. The question is whether Johnson wants to play ball. And if yesterday's reports about him continuing to court MPs, which is exactly what he used to do in David Cameron's day, he used to sort of hold politics 100%, and it's a role he can play very, very well, and it's a problem for Sunak.
Yes, it is. Lewis, thank you. I've taken us up more or less to 12:30. Very, very quickly. When does the Privileges Committee start in earnest?
Well, it's underway right now. So
we get the televised bits yet?
No, not yet. They've been working throughout the summer, so it's something that hasn't gone away, and we're expecting it to sort of begin in earnest this month.
Scale of 1 to 10?
How dangerous it could be for Johnson?
Yeah.
I would say 8.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And I mean, as ever with Boris Johnson, there's so much going on that it's hard to pick out one particular area to focus on. It's
very difficult for him to be able to really realistically say, and Sunak is not going to help him.
That's very clear.
I mean, just in terms of what we were just talking about, look, it would be, Sunak could end up in a situation where if the Privileges Committee come down on Johnson like a ton of bricks and they expel him, and then there is for a certain period, the Commons chooses to vote to do that, and then you have a potential of recall and a by-election. Look, it would be embarrassing for Sunak. Is it a better problem to have than Johnson lurking constantly on the backbenches and being a structural threat to his premiership? I would probably say that it would be.
Lewis Goodall, many thanks indeed. PMQ's throwing up at least as many questions as there were attempts to answer them, as ever. I'll answer one question quickly. The things on the lapels that the MPs were wearing, if you were watching it on television, they're wearing sheaths of wheat. Although Starmer's looked a bit like a pheasant feather. I got closer to the screen. Sheaths of wheat to mark National Farming Day. It's 12:30. Amelia Cox is here now with your headlines. It's 12:34. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we come off the back of PMQs and find ourselves wondering, as Lewis Goodall pointed out, whether or not the time is right for Labour to start being the agitators in chief, as it were, with immigration matters. I think it's important to stress What a significant moment that is. And Starmer's questions were, in fact, let's clear the board and get the phone lines open, because I never get this bit of the show right. Nobody's perfect. I mean, how many years I've been doing it? I don't know how many of them we've been taking PMQs live, but there's always a sense of, I don't know, like having lessons outside when we come off the back of PMQs. There's always a sense of it not being quite... I never get this right. I'm going to keep working until I crack it, but I can't launch a new topic in half an hour, because it usually takes me 25 minutes to finish my introduction, doesn't it? And then, of course, if I don't launch it right, you don't ring in. Because you're thinking, I've got my feet up now. It's time for PMQs with James and Lewis, or James and Theo, or Theo and James. And so I don't know. But I know what I'm interested in. I'm interested in having a conversation about the likelihood of Labour, or Keir Starmer in particular, managing to own immigration as a political problem, which would be the first time in a generation, I think, that it has been of more political benefit to the Labour Party than it has to the Conservative Party. I find that fascinating. So if you have a take on that already, give me a ring and just tell me what you make of Keir Starmer becoming the politician complaining in Parliament, not about levels of immigration. That's very important. That's the right-wing position, of course, because it's built upon xenophobia or racism. It doesn't matter whether you've got a million brilliant people coming into the country that will make us richer and happier and better. If they're foreign, we don't want them. But whether or not politically this is going to be a good idea for Starmer, 0345 6060 973. Julian Suffolk points out that the pressing domestic issues that were going to keep Rishi Sunak from attending COP27 in Egypt have presumably all been solved, have they? Have they all gone away? All those pressing domestic issues that he had? Because that's a flip and a flop, or a U-turn if you prefer. But the immigration question fascinates me, because I think I might know where Starmer is coming from on this. I'm going to share with you two graphs. I say share, I'm on the radio, so I'm going to try and describe to you two graphs that in many ways make a complete mockery of the last 20 years of conversations about immigration in this country, or about asylum seeking, because that's, of course, different, even though the desperate attempts to conflate it have proved largely successful. So here are the latest figures on asylum applications per capita, all right, comparing us to other European countries. The number of applications for asylum that we have per 10,000 members of the population. So this addresses head-on all arguments about being invaded or overrun or doing more than our fair share. And what I find fascinating is how few people, well, here's the question, how few people know about this or care about it. I don't know what the difference is. Because I am a great believer in facts being an antidote to toxic feelings. I really am. I think the best way to lead people out of the darkness is with light. But, of course, we have lived through an era where people boast about not caring about facts. You can prove anything with facts, and not caring about experts. But the UK receives far fewer asylum applications per capita than other European countries. Now, that probably comes as a surprise to you, particularly if you're familiar with Billy Buncher numbers on Twitter, or Doris Karloff on Twitter talking about how we're overrun and invaded, and Suella Braverman was correct. I suggested to you yesterday that the country that takes the most or receives the most applications is Cyprus. What I hadn't realised was how far and ahead it was by everybody else. 153 applications per 10,000 members of the population. All right, this is just EU countries as well. Just EU. These are the top 10 EU countries plus the UK. So we don't even make the top 10, do we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, well, we're not in the EU anymore. Forgive me. But we wouldn't make the top 10 if we were. So Cyprus takes 153, followed by Austria, Malta, Greece, Slovenia, Liechtenstein, Iceland, Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium. I presume France, because Belgium takes 22 asylum applications per capita, per 10,000 members of the population, and we take 8. So I imagine France is higher than 8. I don't know quite. So that is item of evidence number 1, okay? The UK receives far fewer asylum applications per capita than other European countries, almost all of them. We're near the bottom of the table. We're near the bottom of the chart. And then the second graph that I would refer you to is in many ways even more interesting. And this is the graph showing asylum applications per year. So you begin with 1979, where there were hardly any. You have a big peak in the early 1990s, which would presumably coincide with the conflict in Yugoslavia. I mean, and then you have a huge peak in the middle of the last decade. It's sort of 2000 to 2005, which will be Middle Eastern wars. And then it goes off a cliff and starts rising again in about 2010. Again, probably with reference to the Middle East. And by the time you reach 2020 or 2022, it's about half of what it was in the middle of the last decade. No, I beg your pardon, the middle of the first decade of the 21st century. So between 2000 and 2005, you have record highs. In 2022, it's a relative fraction of what it was back then. So there's two graphs there that show two things. The first thing it shows is that we do very little compared to other countries, compared to comparable countries. And the second thing it shows is that at the moment, asylum applications are nowhere near where they were in 1990, in 2000, and in 2005. So we're not even facing a bigger threat than we were when Tony Blair was Prime Minister or when John Major were. So two huge lies that are out and about in the country. The first lie is that something is out of control and things are much worse than ever before. That's a lie. That's not true. And the second lie is that the United Kingdom is somehow shouldering more than its fair burden or is more affected by these issues, which is even beyond a lie. I need a stronger word. I mean, that is a heinous lie, because we barely touch the sides compared to everywhere from Germany to Liechtenstein and everywhere in between. So why? Why in this country, once again, as I told you would happen on Monday, I wasn't expecting it to happen on Monday. I told you it was going to happen on Monday by way of a prediction. I cannot see how this government can do anything now but try to resurrect the sort of racist treatment of asylum seeking that has been sadly out and about all along. And they did. I mean, that afternoon when Suella Braverman talked of an invasion, a word that is deliberately designed to or deliberately deployed to describe asylum seekers as being a threat, like an army or a disease, which of course they're not. Categorically they're not. So why does it work? When we live in a country that does less than almost every other comparable country, and when we live in an era where the problem is considerably smaller than it has been in previous eras, why is this provocation still so effective? 0345 6060 973. I mean, it is absolutely fascinating that people are almost choosing to be infuriated and frightened by a phenomenon that is statistically much, much smaller than they believe. You don't have to be following Billy Bunchup numbers or Doris Karloff on Twitter to see that people apparently in good faith believe that we are overrun or that we are doing considerably more than others or that we have a very particular problem or, crucially, that this is a new level of crisis. There's two things that have happened. The first is that they've shut down almost all the so-called safe routes, which means the only way to come here is by boat, is by small boat in the English Channel, right? You can't apply, for example, from overseas in the way that you could before. You can't come here via other means. The only way you can come here effectively now is by risking your life on one of these small boats and handing a small fortune to filthy criminals, to people smugglers. They've created that system. Think of it as a bottleneck. They've closed down every other means of entry and left only that one. And now they're complaining because everybody trying to come to the UK to seek asylum, which is a tiny fraction of what other countries are dealing with, everybody trying to come to the UK to claim asylum is coming via the only available route. You see, the reason I'm very calm today, rather than upset as I was yesterday at the fascistic tone of Suella Braverman's language, is because I have enormous faith in humans, in people, to see the light eventually. So if you genuinely feel that the United Kingdom is facing an unprecedented problem and is doing much more asylum processing than any other country, I've now given you the information you need to know that that's wrong. You have been lied to. If you're still cross about it, then I'm afraid we're dealing with something different. We're dealing with something that has absolutely nothing to do with facts or reality. And that's what people like Suella Braverman are appealing to when they use words like invasion. So why does it still work? Why does it still work? Much, much lower numbers in total than in many previous eras, and much, much lower numbers in total and according to population than almost every other country in Europe. So why do the Conservative Party continue to preside over chaos and seek to make political capital from it? Okay, 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. But the question I really want you to answer, and I warned you about this, I do a 15-minute introduction for a 30-minute topic, but, you know, it's the nature of the beast on a Wednesday afternoon. I think Keir Starmer made a pretty important move during PMQs today. I think that the Labour Party tend to either hide or look the other way, or hope that the conversation will unravel, or leave it to the Conservatives. Conversation about chaos and uncontrolled borders, if you prefer. That, for the Labour Party to move their tanks onto that particular lawn, is very significant. Do you think it's going to work? 0345 6060 973. Do you think it's going to work? Keir Starmer has turned his guns on Rishi Sunak, and the ammunition is asylum seekers. Is that going to work? 0345 6060 973. Hit the numbers now. You will get through. It's 12:47. 12:51 is the time. So, too simple. I mean, inevitably you've got the headbang. Well, what about land density then? Let's see it according to land density. I mean, it's as if you're just desperate to believe that you're a victim. You're desperate to believe that the United Kingdom is some sort of exception to asylum-seeking rules. It really just isn't. But your desperation to believe it is at least acknowledges implicitly or subconsciously that you're ashamed of what really motivates your attitude to these issues. You're desperately looking around for some bogus statistical justification for the fact that you just don't like foreigners. But the fact that you're embarrassed and ashamed of that position is progress. I can work with that. But the two graphs I've just shared with you or explained to you show that A, things are not now the worst they've ever been, not by a long chalk, and B, the United Kingdom is by no means the country dealing with the highest number of asylum applications, not by a long chalk. So A, what is going on? And B, what do we think about Keir Starmer's attempt to turn this into political capital for the Labour Party? Simon's in Nottingham. Simon, what made you pick up the phone?
I'll pick up the phone. I've been volunteering with an organisation called Channel Rescue down on the Kent coast.
Oh, yeah.
And, we're a migrant solidarity organisation. It's really been based around the situation that's developed since channel crossings by boat happened from sort of 2019 onwards, which is to do with the fact that the French had done a lot of work there to close down the usual routes.
Yes.
So that's the work we've been doing. And I suppose what made me pick up the phone is just to hammer home the point that this is a manufactured crisis.
Yeah.
This isn't really a crisis. This is a crisis leveraged by the government to distract effectively from the cost of living crisis. And we're looking at a situation at the moment in the Manson Detention Centre where a horrendous humanitarian crisis has been created deliberately to grab headlines.
Do you believe that? I mean, that's a strong accusation.
It's an accusation I'm quite prepared to make.
No, and you're perfectly you're free to make it. I mean, it is scandalous and it has created headlines. But the idea that, and it would be Suella Braverman's reported decision not to sign off on more hotel rooms that has created the circumstances you described. So I think you've got quite a case.
Yeah, I think we've seen that. I think we've seen overcrowding and the kind of horrific situation we see. I think they're hoping for some kind of pushback from these people that they can then televise and point at these people. 4,000 of them were crowded into accommodation for 1,600, and it wasn't particularly great accommodation for 1,600.
No.
In the hope that they will do something that they can generate tabloid headlines from.
And then justify
a commendable restraint.
Justify a response.
Correct.
That's pretty ugly.
Yeah, very ugly, and that's the situation we're in at the moment, unfortunately.
And if you look at the difference between backlog and arrivals, of course, your theory of a manufactured crisis gathers even more momentum because, as I've just explained, the numbers are not unprecedentedly high, and the United Kingdom is nowhere near doing as much as most other countries, never mind more. So how do you...
Well, we're quite capable of doing this. We look at the humanitarian response that was given to the Ukrainians, the Hong Kong Chinese. We could do this, and we could do this properly and in a humane fashion and shoulder our responsibilities. We know where these people are coming from. A lot of these people come from places where we've militarily intervened.
Yes.
And I think we need to look at that and say, we owe these people. We've created this situation. Now, we've got to man up really and look at it and say, this is our responsibility, shoulder that.
You lead me towards something that I've danced around a few times, Simon, and it is this idea that, and this is why Starmer's move today at PMQs is so interesting, the sense that the Conservatives need to have immigration. I don't know what the shelf life is. I don't know how many years they have to be in power before, as Keir Starmer points out, it becomes a problem of their own creation. But they need to have these issues on a low boil all the time because they cast themselves as the people that share the concerns of the portions of the population that are either xenophobic or spooked by the thought of immigration or asylum seekers or refugees or just base racists. They need to have some form of crisis constantly on the back burner, and that's pretty much what you're saying, isn't it?
That is what I'm saying. You have a disadvantage in that I haven't listened to Starmer's latest intervention. I certainly wasn't very impressed with previous interventions by himself or Rachel Reeves, who suggested the only problem with the Tory approach to the refugees was that it wasn't being done fast enough or efficiently enough.
Yes.
I understand he's come out against the Rwanda flight. That's good. I'm not sure whether he's using whether he's going to explode this whole thing and say, no, this is a manufactured crisis and it's here to distract us from what's really going on.
My reading is that if you have a system that works in place, you get rid of the perceived catastrophe. And so, if that system can only really make sense at a very basic level is if we allow safe and legal routes. There's absolutely no reason why we couldn't have a system whereby people could claim asylum in France. The French have offered this. They have. Say that again, because people won't know that. People won't know that the French have offered to have processes in place. And that's part of the reason why they had to move it from Calais. Because otherwise, when Ukrainians thought they'd be able to do it in Calais, they couldn't, because otherwise other people would have tried to. And the huge hypocrisy at the heart of this entire policy would have been exposed.
Absolutely. So that's what we want. There's absolutely no reason to be spending millions putting the Royal Navy in the Channel when these people could be using a ferry. Unless
they want these pictures.
Absolutely, that's what they want. They want it to.
I still balk slightly at the boldness of your cynicism, or your depiction of their cynicism. Do you know what I mean? I still want to cling to the idea they can't be that awful, even with all the evidence we've got. That they want these pictures because then they can stand up in the House of Commons and use words like invasion and get cheered to the rafters by Billy Bunch of Numbers and the rest of them.
Yep, that is the situation we're looking at, I'm afraid, and I think we need to take a realistic appraisal and see how the wool's being pulled over our eyes as the domestic population by this manufactured crisis.
And that is what Keir Starmer could and should perhaps be doing. A quick word on the kind of stuff you encounter when you're out on the channel.
Well, we see, what can we say? I mean, desperate people. I mean, how desperate would you have to be to put your family in a boat? As we're seeing increasingly with the French patrols in Calais, people taking the route from further south and then having landed. That's why we've seen so many landings in Dungeness. And you can be at sea for 19, 20 hours there. I've certainly stood there at Dungeness Lifeboat Station and watched them bring in families shivering, in full. But there's absolutely no need for it. And we obviously had the tragedy last November where 27 people drowned. I think, these people having to cross the world's busiest shipping lane. This could all be avoided with a sensible and pragmatic policy. And that is, I'm afraid, where my cynicism comes from.
Yeah, possibly cynicism wasn't the correct word. Well, their cynicism, your depiction of your clear-eyed depiction of their cynicism still sort of cows me into hoping that it's not true. But I'm running out of evidence to support that hope, and I'll probably run out of it completely tomorrow. That's it from me for another day. We'll do it again tomorrow morning from 10. Here's Sheila. 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 Here's Sheila.